What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Couple things to talk about today, including a rapid improvement in the Cemu emulator, along with, well, we finally found out what resolution and frame rate the Mario Rabbids crossover game will be playing at. So let's get started. Now, we are going to start with the Cemu emulator, something we've talked about quite a bit on this channel, actually, in the different news topics that pop up, because it has seen a rapid development. Of course, originally it was having a hard time playing any games at all. And as of a few days ago, we have clips now of Mario Kart 8 from the Wii U playing in 8K on PCs. Now, this video was posted on YouTube, so what they did was they used super sampling, which of course takes that 8K video that they were playing it at, super samples it down to 4K, that way it can be posted with relative ease on YouTube. And this is pretty impressive to see, well, Cemu, which of course the developers do get a pretty penny from Patreon, but apparently they are putting that into at least development of the program, because, well, again, we've seen it go from barely being able to play games to now playing them in 8K, and I gotta say, it looks good. It seems to be playing at a pretty high frame rate. While I can't tell exactly what the frame rate is, it does appear to be close to 50, 60 frames. At times it does dip depending on what's going on screen, but it's playing at 8K, so I'm honestly amazed that it's playing anything above 20 frames. Now, of course, the PC that they're using it's no pushover. According to them, they're using an i7 6700K and a GTX 1080 Ti, two of the kind of the top of the line parts right now, whereas the i7 6700K is kind of falling behind. However, the 1080 Ti is pretty much top level from the GPUs for NVIDIA right now, so you would expect to, well, not be able to hit that with mid-tier hardware. However, at this time, if you have something in the medium range, you can probably play Cemu without too much issue. We've also noticed compatibility becoming better and better over time. So yes, they are to the point where they are developing this emulator to be, almost we'll get to a point where it's perfect, right? I mean, there'll be a point where you can play everything. And at this point, I care less about them making it. Like, it's not a big deal to me anymore if they are trying to emulate the Wii U, although I'm sure several of these people are just pirating these games at this point from torrent sites. But keep in mind, Nintendo seems to have moved on from the Wii U, and they're kind of looking more towards the Switch, so any of the newer games that come out now on the Switch definitely aren't going to work on Cemu, obviously. They are focused on Wii U development right now. Really, at this point, I'm curious to see things like in-game mods that different programmers will make, and of course, just see, I guess, what they can push these visuals to. How good can they make something like Breath of the Wild look? How good can they make something like Mario Kart 8 look? I mean, it's really just interesting to me at that point. I'm not really going to play any Wii U games on my computer, but it is pretty cool to see where they could take their development after they make really emulation perfect, although there are a lot of games for them to cover and make sure everything's fine. But when they get to that point, where do they go? Do they start developing better visuals? Do they add mods in, like we hear about the Breath of the Wild multiplayer mod eventually showing up? Who knows? That's why it's so interesting to see where they go with this. If you do want to see the full video of them playing through Mario Kart 8 in 8K, which of course super sampled to 4K, I'll leave a link down in the description for you. Next up, let's talk about the Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, the game that we see that looks, I mean, it's kind of XCOM-y, right? It's a tactical-based RPG-style game. And a lot of people have been looking at how it looks. It looks pretty good visually, right? It's a decent looking game. And now a lot of people have been trying to figure out what resolution it's playing at and the frame rate, because while a lot of companies are doing this now, and it's very odd, Nintendo's no exception here, a lot of games, trailers especially, are being uploaded to as 60 frames per second when the game that comes out is not 60 frames. For example, Crash Insane Trilogy is one of the best examples here, because a lot of people thought it was going to be 60 frames when it came out, just based on all of the gameplay trailers we saw that were running at 60 frames. It comes out and it's 30 frames. So, okay, well, there's that. It now looks like that the Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle will be 30 frames, and it'll also be 900p when docked. Now, of course, that 900p will be upscaled, of course, to 1080p, much like we see things with the Xbox One, and we have seen with the Switch things like Breath of the Wild. They're upscaled from 900p to 1080p, and it's going to be 30 frames. Now, some people are frustrated, as I've seen online, because, well, it's not 60 frames. And yes, I'm going to be the first one to tell you 60 frames is better than 30 frames. But what it comes down to is this. Is it going to detract from your experience with the game? Is it going to hurt your experience? I would say probably not, considering it's a tactical-based game, which is slower than something like a platformer. I honestly think the difference of 60 and 30 in Crash is a bigger deal than the difference of 60 and 30 in something like a Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle that mirrors more like an XCOM, right? It's something where you take your time and you make your movements in a menu. You don't actually control them with the analog stick, as we've seen. So Is it a big deal? Not really. Will it affect your experience? That's up to you. Is it really that big of a deal to you where you can't play the game because it's 30 frames and not 60? I do see people make that hyperbolic statement there because it's not actually that big of a deal, but people like to really make a big deal out of something that's just, it's not. Next up, let's talk about a fan game success, right? We hear about so many stories about games being cease and desisted, right? Where they get a letter that says, hey, stop making this game or we're going to bring legal action upon you. In this case, though, a game has launched, and it's actually really cool, and it kind of harkens back to the days of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, where you would take care of your Chow, for example, the little Tamagotchi-type guys that you would raise and have them participate in competitions. And the game is called Chow Resort Island, and it is pretty much you taking care of and growing different Chows from Sonic. Now, of course, in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, you would do that in a Chow garden, and of course, you could even use your VMU to take them on the go with you, which kind of mirrored like Tamagotchi, for example. In this case, though, it's a full standalone game, and you can download it for free on your computer, and it doesn't need much to run. It runs on very low-spec computers. And what's great here, aside from being free, of course, is that it was made completely from scratch from one person, Nefaultist, aka Neko. They also made the sound, music, everything themselves. It's a pretty cool story here for a fan game, especially if you're a Sonic fan or you enjoyed kind of the Chow Garden from back in the day. I'll put a link to that in the description as well if you want to check it out. We also got an actual date for Axiom Verge. Now, a lot of us were thinking it would be out in August on the Switch, and if you haven't played it, by the way, it's on Steam. It's a great game. It's kind of like, think of like Metroid. It's like old school Metroid, and it's out on Steam now, and of course other systems also. So I would check it out, but it is coming to the Switch. If you want to hold off for that handheld experience with the Switch's screen and everything and the Joy-Cons, you can wait. It's October 17th, and it looks like they will also have a physical copy if you wanted to get that. Otherwise, it'll be digital as well. This was all confirmed on Twitter by developers. Next up, let's talk about Night Trap on the Nintendo Switch. Remember that game that's, well, it's a weird game, but it did help incorporate the ESRB along with Mortal Kombat back in the day. However, as far as we know, it's coming out on the PS4 and the Xbox One. We have a release date and a physical version coming for the PS4. No release date yet for the Xbox One that I've seen. However, it did come to light recently that apparently the Nintendo Switch was at least lined up to get a version of it, but for some reason Nintendo decided to pull out 2 days later. Now, this was on Twitter from Screaming Villains. They posted a tweet that said, really in response to someone asking about, well, when is it coming to the Switch? Is it coming to the Switch? They responded by saying, not happening, unfortunately. Nintendo was on board originally, but pulled out 2 days later for a very random reason. I tried. Now, this was on July 29th, and what's weird is any site that reported on it and linked to it, that tweet is now gone. So they deleted that tweet, which is very interesting. I'm not really sure why they would do that. I'm also not sure what the random reason would be that Nintendo would not want Night Trap on their system. I mean, is it really something that they're going to miss, or people on the Switch is going to? Not really. They're not going to miss it, right? It's not like an amazing game or anything, but it is a piece of gaming history, and other systems are getting it, so why not? Maybe it's just something Nintendo didn't want to prioritize right now with their early launch of their system, and maybe they're just trying to get everyone else taken care of instead of like a cult classic type game that might not sell very well in the system. So in their case, they're prioritizing other games over something like a Night Trap. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Steam users. Really how the Steam platform has pretty much taken over gaming for PC at this point. I think we all understand this. We all usually have Steam installed right on our computers, even if we don't play all the games on it. Maybe you play Dota or something else on there that doesn't require massive specs. A lot of us pretty much view Steam as a marketplace for PC, much like how console gamers view, let's say, PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, for example, as their marketplace, obviously minus the monthly fee or the yearly fee that you would pay with the latter two. And what's interesting is publications, including places like GameWire, for example, have reported in a presentation, Steam and Valve, in this case, has reported that they have 67 million active users per month now. They have gotten to that point, and it's right behind the PlayStation Network that is technically right now spread across at least 3 different platforms, with the Vita, the PS3, and the PS4, which has 70 million active monthly users. The Xbox Live is quite a ways behind right now at 53 million. They have started to lose some of their user base now with the Xbox Live and Xbox really system sales being down. That's going to happen. Of course, maybe they'll have an uptick when the Xbox One X comes out. We'll see. But really, this is big for Steam, Valve in general, because it shows that, yes, they do control right now the entire PC marketplace for the most part. I'd be really curious to see something like Origin, for example, or the Windows Microsoft Store. I'm sure something like the Microsoft Store sells a lot of lower type games like Candy Crush or something like that, right? Minecraft, probably, yeah. But other than that, I think we're at to the point where Steam is like that third marketplace. The PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Steam. That's just how we have it now. And of course, they're going to continue getting Steam because theirs is free. It's not something you pay for with others. Whereas you can shop in the marketplace, sure. You can't really play online unless you pay. So it's kind of to that point now where, yes, Steam is the juggernaut. It will pass console games. And then at that point, is PC gaming becoming more popular than consoles? That would be really interesting. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it is Mario Kart at 8K. Is it something you want? Is it something you're interested in? I don't know. It's cool to see these Wii U games kind of get that big resolution bump just to see what they could look like, right? That's the only thing I'm really curious about. I'm not interested in emulating anything on my computer because I have the system, but it's interesting to see where they can take it, and it'll be really interesting when they get into the mods and see what they can add multiplayer to. For example, Zelda multiplayer, that sounds pretty cool. Also, let me think about the Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle resolution frame rate. Does 30 frames turn you off so much that you can't play the game? I don't think it's that big of a deal, but people will try to make it that big of a deal. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.